you get out of alignment of yourself and what it is you need and who you are, then you start listening to someone else telling you, and like, it's what worked for them. Just like me sitting here saying that this worked for me. I want to make sure what I'm saying may not work for anybody, but for me, man, it worked. And it started with getting curious about me and tuning everything else out. And so I just took all sorts of dramatic changes. I've because I'm in technology and music, I still need to be in social media, but I use that differently, right? All notifications are off. All the apps are not on the home screen of my phone. The best app on your phone is airplane mode, right? Like, just anytime I can. And so I check in with it a couple times a day. I let myself, but it's more about me posting something that's of interest to me and not worrying about whether people like it or comment on it, because whatever they think of me is none of my business.
Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Listen to the Vibes, and I'm welcoming Mr. Sean Walbridge all the way from Canada onto my show, and he is a drummer, and the list goes on and on, but I'm gonna let him tell a little bit more about himself. So Sean, the floor is yours.
Hey Kyle, nice to meet you. Do you want me to introduce myself? Okay. Yeah, I'm how do I describe myself these days? I describe myself as a drummer first, a bit of a citizen scientist, and these days a Renaissance man. But that's a big change for me. So basically the last year and a half, I've been deconstructing the life that I had built over 20 odd years as a computer consultant. Thought that that's what I wanted to keep doing because it paid the bills. Actually started a company that for all the wrong reasons, it turns out, was very successful at it for a while until I wasn't. And then kind of had a series of ego deaths over the last 4 years that shook me to my core and left me going, well, this isn't how I want to live the rest of my life. And being a guy in technology and knowing that it is quite possible to live to 130 or 150 in people in my age group, it's actually going to be possible based on modern science and everything else. I just thought, well, I don't want to feel crappy for the next 80 years, so I better do something about it. So I started taking care of myself in ways that I hadn't before. So it kind of took me from doing a job that I was very good at, people respected me for, but I personally loathed. And yeah, over time been deconstructing that back to, you know what, I just want to travel and play my drums and meet people and help people. And so I'm basically I am starting to slot those pieces into place. And it's kind of going pretty good. So I'm kind of excited to see where I am in 6 months, because the last 6 months have been bananas as I make all these changes.
And you've had some health concerns and wanted to kind of change that around?
All sorts of stuff, man. I used to be 310 pounds. That was as recent as 4 years ago. And wasn't lazy. I was always playing sports. I'm a drummer, walked all the time. So I wasn't physically inactive, but I don't know, looking back, it was all the usual blind spots of eating when I shouldn't, or eating what isn't good for me, or eating to bury feelings. My big thing was booze, for sure. I was a very successful alcoholic. And that was started to take hold, especially as COVID comes in and you're sitting at home, and there's no place to go and socialize. So how do you socialize? You have a drink and you do it at home. And when you start realizing that you're doing it alone sometimes, and or hiding bottles from your wife so that she doesn't get angry when she looks at the recycling, you start having a bit of a wake-up call.
Yeah.
So between that and a couple of other events, I just started taking care of myself, actually. And so the alcoholism actually came after I lost the weight, though. So I lost about 110 pounds in 2018. I actually went and got surgery, took care of myself, took a chance, basically. So I had 80% of my stomach removed, which is a procedure that I don't regret doing whatsoever, but it did change my life. It made all of a sudden weight started dropping. People started treating me differently, mostly positively, but surprising to me and kind of frustrating as well. But also I could get drunk faster. I used to be able to put back all sorts of drinks with a big stomach with lots of food in it. All of a sudden you've got a much smaller, a banana-sized stomach. You start pummeling booze in there, and I'm a whiskey drinker, a Scotch drinker, so it's pretty high refined sugar, and it just started getting out of hand pretty quick. And right around the same time, the business that I had was collapsing due to a fellow I was working with that turned out to be a bit of a narcissist, borderline sociopath, and rocked my business down to the core that I'm still recovering from. So all of that kind of led to alcoholism, led to me having a couple of conversations with some people, and about a year and a half of thinking about what to do, and like always trying to patch things up in the only ways I knew how. And then eventually I just kind of surrendered and met a couple and up island, and went and had a shamanic experience, a psychedelic experience over a weekend. Had my head blown off basically, and started a new life on the Monday. Came back in town, started making little changes, little ripples, and then started digging into figuring out who I was, getting into sort of personal integrity or personal authority. I realized that I was giving away far too much of myself to everybody. I was patching holes in the dam. I was trying to please everyone, and I started creating boundaries and saying no, and putting self-care first. And once I started doing that, a trend developed where my life got better, but also the people around me started to have kind of a ripple effect as well. So it's been a pretty crazy journey, but the last year and a half, I just am gaining speed, and just every day I kind of feel a bit better than I did the day before. So I think I've figured out a couple shortcuts that seem to be working for me. So
now, did you put the bottle down altogether?
I did for a while, but I actually chose not to. And I did that because I like having a drink. So what I did is I changed my relationship with alcohol. My dad's Scottish. I like to have a dram with my dad, right? Go play cards and have a drink. It's what he enjoys doing. It's his heritage, and I don't want to take that from him, but I also like having a drink. So I had to definitely change my relationship with alcohol. So it started with a bit of cold turkey for about 4 months, then a little experimentation with it, and then I can enjoy it quickly. So it's what I realized once I had addressed why I was drinking, because of unhappiness, because of all the things I was doing. I was using it as a tool to drown everything. Once I kind of realized what it was all about, I was able to shift my relationship with it. So I can still have too many drinks if I'm having a good time, but I know I'm doing it versus being unaware, if that makes sense. What I learned for me, and I don't know how, I think this is probably true for a lot of people, is booze is highly refined sugar. When we're anxious, we crave sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was actually, on this weekend where I had my head blown off, obviously talking about alcohol came up a lot. And the fellow there was saying, well, if you drink a lot of scotch, you're probably chasing the sugar high. And I was like, oh, so what you're saying is if I put jelly beans in my scotch, because I think I've invented some cool new drink, that's like even worse. And he's like, oh yeah, but that's a problem. And so, because I was doing that, I was actually thought I invented some new dessert, put jelly beans in a scotch, watch the scotch burn the glossy outer shell off it. It was extra sugar, but no, that was really just a cry for help. So once I tapped alcohol and sugar to anxiety, I started working on the anxiety, and that's where my relationship with booze changed. So now I have a drink. Sometimes I have too much, but most of the times it's actually I just feel I have a very different relationship with it. It's probably the habits are still there, if they still creep back, but I'm aware of them versus burying them, if that makes sense.
On the other hand, I don't know when to say when, so I just have to leave it alone. And I drank for so long and ruined a lot of relationships and trying to get some back, but you can still tell that there's a scar there. So I try to avoid it. I know how I am,
Hmm.
and it's best that I just leave it alone.
Yeah, I hear that, man. And I've definitely done the cold turkey thing a bunch of times. For me, it always felt like I was torturing myself, like I was denying myself of something. So that's where I just tried to shift the narrative to, I'm worthy of things, I'm worthy of self-care. I put the focus there. And then, yeah, some of that sort of, uh, yeah, just the craving for it changed. Now it's just habitual. And so it's just working on the habits now. But I get it, man. You gotta do what works, right? So make sure you're staying healthy.
I know that's right. And what other changes have you done in your life to help your health situation?
Well, obviously the first thing was that weight loss, and as I say, I think I said earlier, I don't regret it, but I wish I think had I figured out what I figured out now, I would have avoided that, and then I'd be able to sit at a meal and enjoy a full burger. So instead, I've got this sort of like lifetime of if I eat too fast, I feel crappy. So,
Mm-hmm.
but you know what? If I hadn't lost the weight, the alcoholism wouldn't have come on so strong. I wouldn't have had those ego deaths, and I wouldn't have discovered that I had it all wrong. So really, it was just a catalyst. So I'm grateful for that. But since then, plant-based medicine has become a huge part of my life. You know, that first weekend, that experience that blew my mind open to uh, I just learned so much that weekend. And then, but as someone who had never actually done any kind of drug or thing before, I grew up in Ontario in the 80s. The war on drugs was high. I thought that if I smoked a joint, my head would literally burst into flames, right? Like the fear of God was in me. So it was actually about 8 months of after this experience where I didn't have anything again, but knew that I learned so much and it told me so many things. And so it was actually like an internal battle for a long time for, can I do it again? Is it allowed? And then saying to myself, like, dude, you're 49. Like you can make decisions for yourself. You don't have to check in with mom and dad. You have to check in with anybody. And that's something that I kind of had to just decide for myself, is nobody gets to decide for me what I need or how to take care of me. So once I kind of got over that, I started having a couple more psilocybin magic mushroom solo experiences where I would go deep, and they were, sometimes really hard, really hard experiences, but just tapped into something that I learned to use it as a tool. Then I started exploring microdosing, to just kind of like microdosing magic mushrooms for me, for example, really gives me the ability to face whatever the obstacle is every day, right? So it just kind of gives me that little bit of truth about what's going on, makes me feel connected. And when I start talking to people, if something doesn't feel right, I, instead of like being old fake me, or trying to be this people pleaser, I make sure that my needs are being taken of it in that moment. So boundaries and stuff. It kind of gave me a tool to do that. So I don't know if you're familiar with microdosing, but a lot of people are doing it, and a lot of people feel some euphoria. But I use it as a tool to, the obstacle is the path. I use it as a tool to kind of go, no, I'm here, I'm present. This isn't working for me. I'm sorry if it's working for you, but we need to find some compromise here. And I started doing that over and over and over again. And then paths started to open up. Took time, but ended up being a very effective tool. Yeah. And then been exploring all sorts of other stuff since then. So
Yeah, I've actually had guests on that that's what they do, is like microdosing and all that, and they have a controlled session where they bring people in, and they help them with things like their health and mental health and whatnot.
mm-hmm.
I actually thought about doing it myself, so I got a hold of some mushrooms, and then I found out that I have such a high tolerance that even a whole bag of mushrooms did nothing.
Yeah, like a dull experience. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like
It's
2 seconds of, and that was it, you know?
yeah, interesting. Because I've sat in ceremony with a lot of groups. I know some people have had some sort of null experiences, and sometimes that's what the medicine was there to teach you that time. So not that I'd be like, hey, do it again, but sometimes that you, especially with magic mushrooms, my mentor taught me like you get what you need. So you might go into it going, I want to deal with granddad or something, but mushrooms, no, that's not how it works. Mushrooms goes, this is what we're going to work on this time. And then the next time you pick up, if you haven't dealt with it, it's going to pick up again. It just kind of picks up where you left off. You know, the why, or the, what is it? Mushrooms are the wise medicine. They pick up, you know, they're going to give you what you need, not what you're asking for. And so it's an interesting little plant.
The thing with me is, you know, I'm a drug abuser and an addict. So I've tried to get drugs out of my life. But then, you know, I got excited when I heard, oh, well, you could try doing psilocybin and possibly take care of all these problems. And well, it was an excuse for me to get high again.
Mm-hmm.
And I worry about that. Is that going to be my only focus of actually doing it, is getting that high? I mean, do you worry that you might end up like that, or do you think you got it under control totally?
Yeah, I used to worry about it all the time. That's why I sort of graduated into it, because I'd never done any drugs. Like I never smoked a joint, and I'm a drummer of 40 years. So I'm the guy in the band where people come and ask me for the drugs, like they assume it's in my bag or something, right? And I'd always be the square that wasn't doing that. So trust me, I being a very clever and successful alcoholic, I was worried about being, you know, replacing that with something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I've battled with that a lot over the last year, but I have come to grips of as you know, I used this term earlier, citizen scientist. I've been testing on myself. I've been experimenting, not, and it's always with intention, right? When you do plant-based medicine, for example, it's always setting, in intention, right? The set is mindset. What is your mindset as you go in, right? So, you know, if it's I just want to tap out for the day, well, that's not that's not doing therapy. That's just going for a drink with the boys because you had a shitty day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you go into it with the right mindset, you got to go in the right setting and the right intention, then things work, right? If you've just broken up with your girlfriend, you shouldn't go out and do psilocybin because it amplifies the state you're in. So if you're in
Right.
a good mood, it's going to be a great trip. If you're like hating life, don't do it, and don't mix with anything because it's going to be dark. So yeah, no, for me, no, I feel very confident in saying that it's a tool that I use regularly. At this point, I microdose every day. Like I have my stack, and I actually combine a few things to give me my perfect blend. But I start my day with intention. I get up, I get grounded, I do some meditation. I've already had my stack, and so by an hour later it kicks in, and all of a sudden I'm just like in this state of flow, and then that's just kind of my everyday. I take it like someone would take coffee, and to me it is like coffee. It's a plant, right? I'm not taking heroin. Well, actually, I guess that comes from a plant, but definitely that's a more addictive thing. I'm not taking cocaine. It's magic mushrooms, it's cannabis, and these are plants. Mother Nature is so smart, she put the medicine in our food. We just need to make sure that we use it with intention, not with trying to dull whatever's going on for us. If we're not prepared to face it, then we should probably stay away from it. So
all these medicines that they throw at you, I've taken medicines for my depression and PTSD, anxiety. All these things are supposed to help you.
mm-hmm.
And if you actually read the side effects, some of them say may cause thoughts of self-harm. And it's like, okay, that's what I'm taking it to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, personally, I got into more meditation, and I weaned myself off of these medications.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm finding myself handling my condition a lot better than when I was taking all those pills.
Totally.
Now, I have to say that I am not a doctor. This is my personal experience. Don't do anything without talking to your doctor first. Because, I don't want anybody coming back and saying, "Oh, I told you to quit taking your medicine. I don't know what's going to do to you." So, but I weaned myself off of it.
That's good, man.
And like if I'm going into a situation, say on a crowded bus or something, I talk myself down before I even get in. Once I'm in, I know what I'm going to focus on. I know where the exits are, so I'm able to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I'm assuming other people can do the same thing if they put their mind to it, but I don't know that much about the plant-based uh, therapy. And I've just heard little bits and pieces here and there about the microdosing and what little bit I've learned from my guests. But do you go out and advocate for it, or and teach others, or you just
Uh,
how are you doing this?
it's an interesting question because I'm starting to. But it's like you said, I'm not a doctor. And but so all I'm doing lately, and it's part of the reason why I reached out to you just to be on the show, is I need to practice talking about this and getting comfortable with talking about things that I would never have spoken about before. But this information needs to get out there. So I'm not a doctor. I'd be willing to play one on TV. But I'm only sharing what I'm learning about me and what's working for me in hopes that other people might hear it. Because there is a lot of propaganda that comes from government, comes from church, comes from corporations, right? Every one of them is trying to sell us something.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can't, not if you can't, if you get out of alignment of yourself and what it is you need and who you are, then you start listening to someone else telling you, and like it's what worked for them. Just like me sitting here saying that this worked for me. I want to make sure what I'm saying may not work for anybody, but for me, man, it worked. And it started with getting curious about me and tuning everything else out. And so I just took all sorts of dramatic changes. I've because I'm in technology and music, I still need to be in social media, but I use that differently, right? All notifications are off. All the apps are not on the home screen of my phone. The best app on your phone is airplane mode, right? Like just anytime I can. And so I check in with it a couple times a day. I let myself, but it's more about me posting something that's of interest to me and not worrying about whether people like it or comment on it, because whatever they think of me is none of my business. So it's just way easier to just remove that. And so by nature of that, I also don't get the news, which is really great because the news is all garbage anyways. We're hearing about UFOs flying over and balloons being shot down, and that's all just to distract us from other things that are going on that are really uncool, right? It's the usual story. Let's go start a war somewhere because we don't want people to look at this problem. Like it's right. So what's funny is I get people all the time saying, well, how do you know what's going on? I'm like, people will tell me. Like within 4 minutes, I am going to know. Like when the Queen died, I don't follow any news or social media. I still knew within 3 minutes of the announcement because it was on everybody else's lips. So I'm not missing out on anything, but I get to hear it from people, ask questions about what they heard, find out if they actually know what they're talking about. And most people don't, because people are just capture a clickbait title and they've already come to conclusions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I forget what your original question was because I was rambling, but I think it was part around plant-based medicine, right? This is a plant, mushrooms and cannabis are plants. I've done a lot of digging on my own, and I've learned that we have receptors in our bodies for these. We're actually meant to have these plants and did thousands of years ago. Right, there's this concept of the stoned ape theory of how humans became to be. Is that it was apes ate some mushrooms and the size of their brain expanded. Right, so that I started digging into that. I'm like, oh my goodness, like we used to have this thousands of years ago. It made us feel great. It made us invent Santa Claus. All these things, and government, churches, everyone that's seeking power made these things, told us that these things were bad for us, we believe them. And I think if there's any message I want to say is just, if it comes out of the ground, nobody should be profiting from it, right? The reason big pharma exists is to sell us medicine. We could grow it in our backyard, but if we grow something that would grow like a cucumber in our backyard, we can go to jail. I mean, that's just messed up. And my understanding of that is, the war on drugs was Nixon and wanted everyone to go to war, and everybody was getting high, and it was the flower power movement, and everybody was having sex and hugging each other, and they couldn't get anyone to go fight battles in other countries for them. So they lumped in plant medicine with actual harmful drugs, like there are definitely a lot of harmful drugs out there, but I think it's plant-based medicine, I think it's been completely unfairly and like more than unfairly, it's been grossly misrepresented. Now, I know as soon as I say that, there'll be people that might hear this that would go, well, my drugs killed my brother or whatever. But just like, guns don't kill people. People pulling a trigger kill people, right?
Exactly.
Same thing with medicine or drugs. Someone put it in their body. They either did it themselves because they were so unhappy, or in the worst case, someone gave it to them and tried to harm them. But it's not the thing itself, right? It's hurt people, and there's a lot of that going on. So, I think I'd like to see it. Well, I think there's already a renaissance happening of plant-based medicine. I'm not sure what it's like in Austin, but here in Canada, cannabis is legal. It's controlled. It's controlled so that the government can make money. Because if I could just grow it in my backyard, why wouldn't I? But I can't. So instead, it's controlled, and it's still built around fear. Don't have too much, etc. And there's good reasons to understand. Well, there's great reasons to understand the dosage. But yeah, no, it's a shit show. I think psilocybin will be illegal in Canada within the next couple of years. They actually introduced a new law here, and I'm not a lawyer either, nor am I a doctor, but I'm fairly certain that the new understanding is you're allowed to have up to 2 grams of any drug on your person now in Canada.
Oh wow!
And so it was my father the other day was upset about this. I'm like, that's terrible. And I'm like, no, Dad, what you're not thinking about is people that are have an addiction can't even go talk to anyone about it, because the first thing they're going to be asked is, do you have any on your person? If you do, then you get incarcerated, and then you get help. Yeah. So I should be able to carry 2 grams of plant medicine with me if I want to, and I now can. But if I wouldn't be doing crystal meth, but if I had some crystal meth on me and I needed help, I could at least say, I've got some on me. Can you help me? Like, we can have a conversation about it, right? So it's going to take a long time till I think people understand that that's a good thing, is to allow that and to stop trying to tell people what to do, because we're just getting hammered with garbage, insurance and pharmaceuticals, and it's all greed-based money, and it's gross, it's disgusting. So yeah.
I'm working alongside a veterans organization, and we have these guys come back from war. They've been trained basically as an attack dog, and then released back into society, and expect them to just adjust like that. But they come back and they have different mental problems and other health problems. And what do most people do when they have a mental problem is they go out and they treat it with drugs. Alcohol is a drug, and that's one of the first things they usually go for. And then the next thing you know, they're doing heroin or whatever else they can get their hands on. And they get arrested, they get thrown in jail. We're punishing you after what we've already punished you with, basically. We've got
profiting from it.
And profiting from, exactly. And we need to figure out some other way to help these folks. And it shouldn't just be only veterans get help for, drug problems and mental problems. It should be everyone, because I've told the story over and over again how I was molested when I was a child. And one of the ways I coped with it at age 12, I started drinking and doing drugs, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And should I be punished more because of that? Should, Sally down the road, who, had been tossed around from one person to another and taken advantage of, and her way of coping with it is putting a needle in her arm, should we punish her more? That's not right to me.
Nope, totally. Trauma is a very interesting thing, right? There's PTSD, like it's a form of trauma. And we all have it, and we all have it in small forms and big forms, and trauma can get compounded. So, I've through medicine, I've actually gone back to being 4. I've gone back to being 8, and actually discovered key points in my life where something happened that affirmed for me a belief about myself. And then I started building a shell of armor around that, because it'd be like, see, I knew that happens. It always happens to me. And it compounds and compounds and compounds. So, someone going to war and seeing their best friend get shot in the face, that's going to seriously mess your head up. But it's actually small things too. And it might have been the reason you were in that position where that happened was from a series of other traumas that led you there, right? Like it's just part of that life experience. And it's trauma is the main thing I've been working on for the last 2 years. Like, how did I get to the place I did where I was 310 pounds? How did I get to the place where my best friend totally screwed me in my business and my family? I got there by making a series of decisions, and I had to take responsibility for it. But I also was super curious as how I got there. And so digging into trauma, it came down to a belief I had about myself in grade 4, or this thing happened when I was 2. And now that I've, figured out what those things are, experienced them, and like re-experience them basically, because you can, in medicine, you could basically be transported right back to that moment. But it's very different when you view it as an adult. You're like, you can actually like witness what happened. You can go, okay, bud, that sucked, but we don't need to do this anymore. We don't need to believe that anymore. We can actually, you're basically giving your younger self a hug, right? And yeah, it's powerful. So that's you're talking about PTSD. And I'm definitely a bit of an anarchist these days, but so hang on to your hats. But like in Canada with the military here, there's this concept of top secret status. You earn top secret status, and why you have that, once you have that, it's like a badge of honor. But this badge of honor, I'm seeing it hurting people. Like I know of several cases now where people have been in battle or in a seriously deep, dark, scary place, experienced PTSD in a military type situation. And some cases it's an injury or whatever. They get transported home and their files all redacted. It's all a bunch of black blocks, right? You can't read what even happened to you. So they're taking away your ability to find out even what happened so that you can heal from it. And what they do is they hold this badge of top secret in front of you. Like you can, my understanding is you can have these things unredacted, but you'd have to give up your top secret status. Well, you've been indoctrinated in the military to believe that that's the most important thing you can wear on your uniform, right? Or whatever. I mean, I guess you don't wear it, but like you carry it like a badge of honor.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And it's killing people. And you know what? It's all about hiding what happened. It's hiding someone made a mistake, and they don't want the mistake to be known because that means someone will get sued and it'll cost someone money and we'll have to get lawyers involved again. So these people are suffering for all the wrong reasons. And at the end of the day, if they're suffering just to hold on to some dumbass, secret handshake belief that serves no value, especially if you leave the military. What do you need top secret status for? They're not going to pull you back into a secret room and give you, some special clearance one day later. They've already moved on to their next round of victims. So
kind of like getting that card from Walmart and said preferred customer on it.
Yeah.
What doesn't really mean anything, does it?
Nope.
Jeez. Well, besides your advocation here with the plant-based therapy, do you have a couple of websites that I went to look at? One of them was it Rockin' Bingo and Rockin'
Yeah.
Night, something like that? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, because you asked me like who I was. So I was this computer consultant guy. So I lived in Bermuda from 1998 to 2003. Great experience, super cool. Got to be this high-end IT guy in this cool place and flying all over. But when the last guys, or no, not the last guys, the job before my last job there, I worked for two guys that made me feel a foot tall. I was like a fantastic worker for them. I was making tons of money, but they made me, they were not good people to me. But I left Bermuda coming back with a daughter and a son on the way going, like apparently any idiot can run a business. I'll show them. So I started a computer consulting company, not on like, I'm excited about starting a computer consulting company. I started because I'll show those dickheads that anybody can run a business. Well, you know what? They didn't even notice, right? So joke's on me. I built a very successful business for 5 years. Then I kind of was not phoning it in. I certainly just wasn't enjoying anymore, but I didn't know it, right? I was in safety mode. My kids are growing up. I want to make sure they were well taken care of. I was in take care, family first. And that family first is a great idea, but really got to take care of yourself first. So you have the energy to take care of others. That's what I learned, right? So
Definitely.
Then I met this guy who, thought he was my best friend. He was in my will. He was the trustee of my kids. He was going to become a partner in the business. And then all hell broke loose. And it turned out it was all a lie. And so that shook me to my core. That was an ego death that led to me entering COVID already, limping, but, started doing that. So instead of selling that business or just like tapping out right when the universe was saying, hey, this is not for you, I just starting new businesses. So, and it made sense at the time because we were a computer consulting firm. We had developers on hand. I'm a drummer and love playing music. But getting gigs was hard. If you're a cover band or whatever, you're only as good as how many friends you bring in. Well, being pretty introverted and the whole band being pretty introverted, we weren't getting a lot of gigs because we would be awesome, great band, but no one would come back because your friends come once, right? Like, I'd love to support you, and then try to get them a second time. It doesn't happen. Right. So I was like, well, I'm going to come up with a concept. So I came up with this concept of live band music bingo. So I don't know if music bingo is a thing in Austin, but out west here, it's in like every bar. So it's basically like, on bingo, under the B, the number 1, under the I, but you do it with music. So you play a clip for 20, 30 seconds. You'd be like, under the B, it's Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. And people sing along and they're having fun. They're having a good time, but they're also playing a game and win prizes. So music bingo has been around a long time. And, but I wanted to do that with my band because I thought, there you go. I've created a concept where bars would want you back because they're not coming to see me and the boys, they're coming to play this game. And it ended up being super fun for us too, because we can now play 150 songs in a night instead of 25 because we're only playing 20 to 30 seconds. The crowd's engaged. It's kind of like a piano bar vibe, except it's with 4 of us, right? So you're like interacting with the crowd. If they really like the song, we can keep going. So we're kind of like playing with the room. And so that concept really worked. But doing it to paper didn't make sense during COVID. You're handling paper. And I wanted to build an app. So I tapped the team to build a web-based service. So basically, long story short, the live band music bingo thing is Rockstar Nights. And the platform we built is called Rockstar Bingo. And it's actually a platform that, what are we at, almost 2 years later, and it's in 14 countries and growing. So I basically created my new career. And so I'm slowly dismantling Sean, the IT guy, and becoming Sean, the drummer that has some apps that pays the bills. And so that's kind of what's going on. And I've started a few other apps, and I definitely have a very busy brain and like to be active. So, I think we've got four companies now, and we're starting another one. In fact, the space that I'm in here right now was the office space for the computer consulting company. But on, was it March 16th, 2020, everyone grabbed their laptops and a chair and went home and never came back, because in computer consulting, they could do it from home, right? So the spaces sat empty and lonely. So we're turning this into a wellness, a community wellness center. So it's going to be
cool.
meditation, yoga, ganja yoga, yoga nidra, sound bathing, all sorts of stuff. So basically, we're going to call this place Funky Town. And I think we're going to be opening in about 3 weeks. So that's kind of exciting, and making all sorts of new connections. And yeah, it's pretty interesting that it's all come full circle. I went from computer guy to guy kind of in the healing space reluctantly. Like, really, it's just sharing the things that I've learned with folks, because, you know, plant medicine is part of it, but as you alluded to, meditation and breath work and just getting quiet in yourself is actually super, super powerful, right?
It really is.
I've learned that it's called a yoga practice. It's a meditation practice. You can't just do it once and be like, oh yeah, I'm good. Like, it just doesn't work that way, right? The brain takes a while to be trained. And I went in on like writing it off for years, but I had to actually do it for a while. And now it's just something like, I deserve having some meditation time. I deserve having some yoga. And if you look back, and again, I'm a deep researcher, but like thousands of years ago, yoga was what kings did. You know, that's what the elite did, was they were doing yoga because they knew they had to take care of their mind, body, and spirit. These days, we just assume that it's like punishment, or we have a very different idea of what it is, and it's really unhealthy. So yeah. So I guess, yeah, I'm an advocate for breath work, meditation, somatic trauma release. So that's that whole, getting quiet with your body and listening to it and trying to find the dis-ease in your body, the whole metaphysical thing. I'm into quantum physics, and I'm into kind of all of it. So this wellness center is going to be kind of a place to come and do yoga. It's a place to come and do ecstatic dance. It's a place to, I'll probably be showing people how to use computers still, because I still like doing that. Like, it'll just be a place you'll come here to learn something, even if it's how, sound frequencies work, because I'm into all kinds of stuff, man.
What is the Rockstar Nights?
So that's the live band version of Music Bingo. So there's Rockstar Bingo. It's the app that other hosts use to deliver Music Bingo in their bars. So you connect with Spotify. So basically we're empowering hosts all over the place. Rockstar Nights is the live band version of it. And that's something I want it to be the Cirque du Soleil of the bar circuit one day. Like, I'd love to have a home base, much like, Cirque du Soleil has a bunch of places in Vegas, and then they also tour it. I'd like to do that, but with this Music Bingo concept, because it's actually a ton of fun. We're going up Island Saturday, playing at a theater there. I'm pretty excited about that. So yeah, it's starting to become a thing, man. It's definitely a new me.
Are you writing a book?
A few people suggested I maybe should. I know I've got some ideas around sharing shortcuts and things that I've figured out. I don't know do people read books? I listen to books, and me, it's kind of like, YouTube shorts, maybe a book of sorts, but it's kind of more like, here's a series of things. Like, I'm anxious. This is what I do to do breath work for anxiety, or, I have back pain. This is what I would look at first before, immediately jumping to pharmaceutical, or like throwing more Advil in. Like, I used to be on high blood pressure meds. I used to have sleep apnea. That after that weekend that I went and had my mind blown, and there was, we did chakra work, we did medicine, obviously, like, and heroic doses of it, so it was intense. But they suggested, hey, why don't you just try sleeping without your sleep apnea machine? And I've never used it since.
Wow.
And so it was, and I had heavy duty sleep apnea. Even after the weight loss, I still had it. I mean, it was less than when I was much larger, but I still had significant sleep apnea. But when I went there that weekend, I had such an experience that I felt like my chest expanded 3 times, like the Grinch, at the end of the movie, whereas I just felt like my heart actually kind of semi-exploded on my chest. And I've been working on that ever since, right? And that's partly breath work and stuff. So
shoot, maybe you can make DVDs and, be kind of like the next Jane Fonda, but for what you do.
Well, the thing, yeah, it's all out there though, right? So I don't know, would anyone need to hear from someone else saying it? I think if anything, I'm just kind of compiling it like a tastemaker. Like these are the things that suited my taste. Maybe some of these tips will help someone else, but there's just so much out there. I mean, that's all I got most of my information from YouTube. You know, it's really, there's I mean, there's a lot of crap information on there too, but it's all there if you know how to dig for it, and you recognize that you don't have to believe it all. Like I've experimented with a few things. I'm like, no, that's not for me, but I gave it a try, right? Let's just see if this works. So yeah, I've discovered some really wacky stuff lately that on first whiff I was like, no way, man, that's not a thing. And now I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing. So I just don't tell everyone about it sometimes because some of it's just a bit too woo.
Everybody has a different approach to how they teach. So, somebody might be able to connect with you better than they could, the shaman down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So why not give it a try?
Yeah, it's well, yeah. Thanks for the invite because I've kind of been waiting for someone to ask me to. I think that's maybe what I need to do, but I just got to think about timing and format. Plus, I got a lot of stuff on the go, but I'll probably get around to that. I think that'd be good.
There's another Mohawk drummer out there who wants to know about plant life or plant-based therapy. So, they're going to connect with you.
Yeah. The Mohawk's pretty new. That's been about a year now. So
what's up with the Mohawk?
So I don't even remember why I started with it. Because if you had asked me 5 years ago that I would have a Mohawk, there's no way I would have been on board with that. But about a year and a half ago, everyone's having COVID haircuts, right? Everyone's growing long beards. And I think I was just bored. And I kind of just shaved a Mohawk in, knowing that in a Zoom call, I could throw on a toque or a hat, right?
Right.
So it was like my own little secret. And so I kind of did that for about a month, but I would occasionally let people see it and gauge their response. So it's almost like that citizen scientist thing, right? Like I was just experimenting with, like, do people actually care? And what I really realized is nobody did. I mean, most people didn't even notice, which I thought was strange. And then the first time I really went out in public with it is I went to the gym for a workout. And I didn't bring a baseball cap. So I went there wearing a toque because it was winter and I'm in Canada. And so I'm like, oh, crap. I'm either going to have a really sweaty toque at the end, like just basically a wet, rag on my head, or I might as well take it off. So I took it off and I got a bunch of, dude, your hair looks awesome. Instead of like, dude, what have you done? You're 50. That's crazy, right? And so I just did my workout. And then I'm sure I put the toque back on, but then we went on vacation to Florida a couple weeks later. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to walk around like this everywhere because not a single person there knows me. So at that point, it's not even like caring about what people I know think of me. It was like, these people don't know me at all. And, nobody noticed. Like, there's the odd person that they do a double take. I have lots of little kids telling me they love my hair. Like, it's like, because they just think it's cool. And so that feels good. And I always make sure, well, I love your shoes or whatever. And that makes them feel good. And, so it ends up being this kind of nice vibe thing, right? And then over time, I started throwing color in it. I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but it's like very purple. The lighting here, like it's bright purple, actually. So this, what I'm looking at here looks pretty dark, but it's bold. And man, I don't care. It's for me and I enjoy it. I went through a whole period for a while there where I realized I cared what other people thought. And right, because we all do. And then I really struggled with like, well, I don't want to be that guy that doesn't care what people think, because that's dangerous. That's where now you've just gone entirely negative. And I had an epiphany one day, and it's like, it's not that I don't care what people think. It's that I care what I think. And then I respect what they think after that. And by flipping that narrative and being like, I care what I think. I care that I like having a Mohawk, and everyone else can just deal with it. So, and my wife, for example, we've been married, it'll be 28 years this July. Poor lady has to walk around with me in malls and stuff and have people take a look. And she's always like, why are they always staring at us? And it's like, well, okay, remember, hon, I got a giant purple Mohawk in my 50s. And I think for a while there that bothered her, and she's just been a great sport ever since. Like, she just kind of had to, but I had to be like, this is going to be what it is, babe. this is me. And and she's been great about it. So yeah. That answer your question? That's why I have the mohawk, is because I want it and I enjoy it. Also, I don't lose hats anymore because I basically got shaved head on the back, and so it's like Velcro. So if I do throw on a hat, it's on like
it's there.
Yeah.
Well, when I was a supervisor, I had to at least look presentable. So I had a decent short haircut. And then when I retired, I was like, why do I need to, keep that perfect hairstyle? I just let it grow out. I'm not cutting it again. And I know you can't really tell, but I mean,
yeah, the lighting is pretty dark. We got, nice.
I mean, I got a pretty good little ponytail going.
Well, if you want to change the colors, I've learned how to bleach and change colors. So
you hit me okay.
Up. It's 2 steps. It's two half-hour moments where you're sitting there with a bunch of crap on your head and 2 showers. But other than that, you come out of that feeling like a new man.
I heard that. Well, I'm with you. I care what I think, and I will respect somebody else's opinion. I don't always have to listen to their opinion. But you got to make yourself happy at the end of the day, right? You
got one crack in this particular meat sack, so you might as well enjoy it, right? And I think being in personal integrity is important. What is it that you need? And everything kind of works itself out. I've had I've had some relationships fall away over the last year and a half but it turned out they didn't even notice I was missing. Like, I went through a big purge on Facebook 8 months ago, and I just unfriended about 150 people. And they were people that I realized I had friended, probably thinking like just subconsciously. It was like the Kevin Bacon, like, oh, I'll be friends with this guy because he knows this person. That's someone I'd like to meet one day, or someone I could benefit from, right? That was the old thinking. And so I'm maintaining these connections with these people that we have nothing in common. Usually they're the ones that don't agree with me if I post something on Facebook, which at this point I don't care if people agree. As I say, like, I'm just stating what works for me. But they'd ultimately have something to say, and then I just feel conflicted. And I was like, once I unfriended some of these people, they never noticed. Like, literally, I was keeping those relationships alive, not them. And I realized how much energy, just energy vampire stuff that was going on in my life. And every connection that I got rid of that wasn't authentic gave me more space and time back to make new connections. And I completely missed that. The former me was just like lost and didn't recognize that. And now that I see that, I'm like, all connections need to be good, or it feel right. And those connections can come and go too. Like, your people are here for a minute. Was it a minute, a moment, or a lifetime? Or whatever, you don't have to keep every relationship there. You get what you need from each other, and you can move on and be okay with that. Break those bonds if there's nothing there. That was something I never used to do. I just maintained all relationships, and it just compounded. It was energy draining, keeping relationships open that weren't serving me and weren't serving them either. I mean, we did each other a favor. So
I've said this a million times, that I've got a small circle, although there's still room, but I keep those people around me that have something positive to contribute to my life. And I still have other friends that I love dearly, but I love them from a distance. People that I've known 30, 40 years, that if they really needed me, I would be there for them. But I don't hang out with them because they're energy draining. They want to party, and they don't want to get serious about being, a decent human being, or being successful, or all these things that I'm looking for in my life. I want to be a better person. I want to be a role model. I want to be successful. I want my grandkids to say, oh, I want to be like Pawpaw when I grow up, You
can apply that to family too, right? You can love people in your family, but you don't have to like them. It's still a choice, right? And so that was some of the choices I made too, with just, creating distance where the relationship wasn't serving me. I'm open to reestablishing that, but I'm not going to force anything, because it just creates, it's just too much work for everybody involved. Everyone's on their own path, journey, figuring their own stuff out. Some do, some don't. Some are at various states of repair. But if we're not helping each other, let's just get out of each other's way and wish each other well. So
Yeah, I've recently had to cut off somebody in my family who I love dearly. I still love with all my heart, but just too many things that they're doing that it's just not appropriate, and it's not going to serve me or my family. So I'm sorry. If you need a kidney, I'll give you a kidney, but other than that, I'll just love you from over here.
yeah, because you might actually be interfering in their destiny too, right?
That's true.
If you actually get in the way of them experiencing the bottom they need to hit so that they can actually take responsibility for themselves. So during COVID, we actually kept 4 or 5 employees on that we couldn't actually afford, because work was really it was tapped out, and we were struggling, and partly from this previous stuff that had happened. So my wife and I were paying people from our savings instead of laying them off. And so that was like, we blew through finances that we didn't really have to keep people that weren't motivated. They still left. The second they got a better paying job, they were like, check you later. 2 weeks, they were gone. And it leaves you with a feeling of resentment of like, are you kidding me? I kept you employed from my savings, and this is how you return it. But you know what? They didn't know. And someone said something to me, and that was the real eye opener. They said, not only did you suffer by spending your savings on them, not only did you keep them around when they weren't being useful and end up resenting them, but you actually stole from them an opportunity to learn. They didn't get laid off. You prolonged something that they didn't actually ask for. So it was like, so I suffered and I'm the asshole in that scenario. It's like, when I started looking at it that way, I was like, damn it. So, you need to not get in people's way, take care of yourself. Be there ready to listen with your heart when it's time, and not interfere. I learned that I was constantly trying to save everybody instead of myself. I spent way too much energy on that, right? And I realized that the more self-care I've taken, the more I'm able to do for others, because I didn't actually have energy to be present or relaxed around people, because I was dying inside. So as soon as I got to a point where I was in the best self-care for myself, I had time and space to be relaxed, be present, and then actually sit and listen and talk to people. So I would have been diagnosed with ADHD as a kid, for sure. I have a very, 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 very busy brain. And it has taken a lot of effort and work to quiet it, but it's quiet now. And I realize that, you hear these stats all the time, like we have 70,000 thoughts a day, and 85% of those are negative self-talk. So when you think about a busy brain just going, you're stupid, this is why this happens, you suck, that brain, I've quieted it now. Like it's that is a huge part of that is gone, and I'm still on it. And that partly that's been, this trauma somatic kind of release. It's finding the right stack daily, my daily medicine stack that works for me, right? So I like my cup of coffee, I have one around 11:30, and it's because I need a pick-me-up then. So instead of starting my day with, oh, I need my cup of coffee or I won't function, I don't need a cup of coffee in the morning or I won't function. I start with some breath work, some yoga nidra. Have you ever tried yoga nidra?
No.
Dude, it's basically a nap. It's like it's amazing. So it's basically anywhere from a 10 to 30 minute guided yoga nidra that I got on YouTube. And basically you just, these little sessions are a person walking you through slowing your breathing down, breathing in deeply through your nose, out through your mouth. And then actually the one I listen to, her name's Allie. It's fantastic. And she walks you through connecting to different parts of your body. So she'll be like, imagine your nostrils and picture the air coming through your nose, and then your eyebrows, and you're going to release the tension around your forehead. And you're just doing this curled up in a blanket, lying down. You can lie down. You don't have to like sit up and be prone and be like, hardcore meditation. This is just a nap. But when I come out of it, man, I'm so relaxed. All anxiety is gone. Andrew Huberman, I don't know if you follow him, but he's really deep guy in sort of like brain health space on YouTube. And he says he does yoga nidra twice a day for 15 minutes. And he equated it, I think he did, or if he didn't, I believe that 15 minutes of yoga nidra is equivalent of about a 4-hour sleep, like a deep, restful sleep. So my latest experiment is, maybe I just won't keep regular sleep schedules. I'll just like every 4 hours have a 15-minute power nap and then just get more done. I'm not sure I'm on board with that because that's disruptive to my family's setup, but I'm thinking about it. So yeah, it's yoga nidra, man. You might want to check that out. It's awesome. It's just a nap. It's a very cozy nap, but guided and all about getting grounded and quiet in your body so that you can prepare for the next decision that's coming, because that's what the day is a whole series of decisions you got to make.
I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah.
Now, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, do you have a website or something?
Yeah, I got a bunch, but the best place is brainlitter.com. So I started a website 18 years ago. I called it Brain Litter because it was basically all the crap that falls out of my head. And it's at the time it was all techie stuff. I haven't actually posted anything on there in a while, but my contact information is on there. I post the odd thing. I think I will be doing more and more in this space, particularly as we open this wellness center. I think we'll want to, share more tips, and that'll drive people to our business and have them come and seek us out. So content there will probably increase over time, but yeah. So long story, brainlitter.com. It's the shit that falls out of my head so I can find it later.
And what about social media?
I think if you just look for Sean Walbridge, actually, all that stuff is on Brainlitter as well, right on the contact page. I think I've got all the links there. So I recently renamed my Twitter because it used to say regroove_Sean. That was the name of my business and my company. I'm like, that's not who I am. So I recently renamed it to Mohawk Muppet, because I definitely I've come to realize I'm a bit of a Muppet. In fact, this hair was pink last week and definitely looked like Beaker. And as a sort of mad scientist, it actually kind of lines up. So yeah, so Mohawk Muppet, I think, is my Twitter. I'm not a big tweeter or Twitter. I'm not big on that space.
I'm not Twitter pated.
Yeah. No.
I think I saw one of your posts that says Meeper's gonna meep.
Oh, I've got a shirt that says that.
Yeah. I saw one of your posts that saw the shirt.
Yeah.
When you said Beaker, that reminded me of that. But yeah, you're what? Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter?
Yeah, all those things. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to put those links up in the description so people can easily find you. But Sean, man, this has been fun, man.
Yeah, dude. I enjoyed talking to you. And it's a nice way to start the day with a new connection. That's always good.
Well, I wish you all the success in the world, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. You too, eh? And I might be in Austin before you know it. There's a whole bunch of reasons I want to go there. So if I make my way out there, I'll shoot you a note.
Yeah, let me know. Be glad to take you out to eat somewhere.
Cool. Well, I'm an inexpensive date. I don't eat a lot. So
gotcha. Well,
all right, dude.
And also want to thank all you folks out there. If this is your first time, I appreciate you stopping by the channel, and I hope you'll come back for my regulars. And I love y'all because you make it possible for me to do this. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network